Flexion, a bending movement around a joint in a limb that decreases the angle between the bones of the limb as the joint. An example of that is elbow flexion, bending the elbow to bring the forearm upwards. Circumduction is a circular movement or a limb or body part that's a combination of flexion, extension, abduction, and adduction. And an example is shoulder move or outstretched arm in a circle. Aversion, a strong feeling or dislike or with unwillingness to do something. An example is getting up in the morning. Go. Extension, something that is extended or enlarged in addiction. An example is a movement that increases the angle between two body parts. Supination, the act of turning the palms of hands or the soles of the feet upward. An example is your forearm. When you raise a weight, you should supinate your forearm by turning your palms upward. Rotation, a body movement that occurs when a limb turns around its long axis similar to turning a screwdriver. An example is pivot joints. One bone rotates in relation to another bone. For example, the radius bone in the forearm rotates around the lower end of the humerus bone in the upper arm. Hyperextension is the abnormal or axis extension of a joint beyond its normal range of motion, thus resulting in injury. An example occurs when a joint is moved past its normal angle of extension. Example is like punching the air. Pronation, a rotational movement of an anatomical part towards the body's midline. An example is forearm and hand. Pronation of a forearm and hand rotates the palm downward or backward. The opposite of pronation is supination, which rotates the palm upwards. Abduction, it means a movement away from the midline, and an example is raising the arm at the shoulder joint, moving it laterally away from the body. The next one is dorsiflexion, and it means flexion at the ankle so that the foot points more superiorly. And an example is raising the toes upward when walking at the foot comes up off the ground to take the next step. Plantar fascia, which is a movement in which the top of your foot points away from your leg. An example is a thick band of connective tissue that runs from the heel to the toe on the bottom of the foot. Adduction is the movement of a body's part toward the body's midline or an imaginary line that runs down the middle of the body or limb. An example of that is hip and shoulder, returning the arms and legs to their original position after a jumping jack. Inversion, the movement of a body part, typically the foot where the sole is turned inwards toward the midline of the body, meaning the bottom of the foot faces medially. An example of it is when you roll your ankle inwards, like when you're stepping on an uneven surface or your foot twists inwards. Thanks for watching, that's all.